Battlefield 5 should be a marketing 101 case study on how you can do everything absolutely wrong and ruin a good game and potentially a whole franchise. After a deluge of shooters in futuristic or modern settings, the FPS community was clamoring for a new-gen World War II game. The huge success of Battlefield 1, which was a World War I shooter, made it pretty clear that Battlefield is the best franchise to make a great World War II game. So how did it manage to fail so hard? The official reveal trailer was a complete disaster. Taking the first few seconds to make sure you'd see the disabled female British soldier and her katana-wielding friend making respawn jokes in a half-gameplay, half-cinematic trailer of a semi-realistic shooter game which results in a 60 to 40% dislike ratio on the video. The best clip that illustrates that is the genuine confusion of Dr. Disrespect when he first saw the trailer to the game, not knowing if it's a World War II game or a cyberpunk universe.
I'm just trying to figure out if this bridge was damaged from the war or if that's the period. Like, is this an apocalyptic steampunk period? I'm just trying to figure out what the hell is this. World War I, World War II? Is this like a sort of like a futuristic civil war in the United States? Is it Cold War era? Because I feel like they're just they're running out of ideas.
When the community pushed on the developers as to why they put a disabled female soldier front and center in their World War II game, one of the developers left the following Reddit comment. "I knew this was going to be a fight when I pushed for female soldiers in Battlefield. I have a daughter, and I don't ever want to have to answer her question of, why can't I make a character that looks like me? Well, because you're a girl. I fundamentally feel to my core this is the right way, and I will find myself on the right side of history." Since we know how much the game failed, he was definitely not on the right side of history. Why is his daughter old enough to play a World War II game, but not old enough to understand how less progressive the world was during a war from 80 years ago? It was largely driven by racism, but it was the chief design's response that sealed the deal for Battlefield 5 and really showed us why the game failed so hard. In an interview with Gama Sutra, the chief creative officer Patrick Soderlund said, "On the women in Battlefield, this is something that the development team pushed. Battlefield 5 is a lot about the unseen, the untold, the unplayed. The common perception is that there were no women in World War II. There were a ton of women who fought both in World War II and partook in the war. I have a 13-year-old daughter that when the trailer came out and when she saw all the flack, she asked me, 'Daddy, why is this happening?' She plays Fortnite and says, 'I could be a girl in Fortnite. Why are people so upset about this?' She looked at me and she couldn't understand it. And I'm like, okay, as a parent, how the hell am I going to respond to this?" And I just said, you know what? You're right. This is not okay. These are people who are uneducated. They don't understand that this is a plausible scenario. And listen, this is a game. And today gaming is gender diverse, like it hasn't been before. There are a lot of female people who want to play and male players who want to play as badass women. And we don't take any flack. We stand up for the cause. Because I think those people who don't understand it, well, you have two choices. Either accept it or don't buy the game. I'm fine with either or. It's just not okay. It's funny how both of them use their daughters as shields for the backlash and criticism, but they failed miserably. Who knew that antagonizing your player base by calling them uneducated and daring them not to buy the game would result in the game completely failing and maybe resulting in the death of the whole franchise? Underneath the obvious fact you shouldn't use kids as shields for criticism, or that you shouldn't antagonize your customers and dare them not to buy the game, there was another contributing factor to the failure of the game that most people missed. EA, seeing how successful Fortnite is and the amount of revenue it generates, tried to copy and paste it into one of their own existing franchises, Battlefield, which was the worst idea they've had to this day. Yes, having a super generic rated E game like Fortnite that is so appealing to a large audience is great to have. But prior to being that, Fortnite was just a co-op horde game that was the best free-to-play battle royale option at the time, while Battlefield was a semi-realistic shooter game with a very niche community which mostly wouldn't play Fortnite. EA greedily foregone their niche audience they had already established and tried to make their game more inclusive to an audience that would never buy their game in the first place. You can count on one hand the amount of people who would not be offended by a World War II game, but would be offended by lack of gender diversity in a World War II game. Yes, the large Fortnite audience is very appealing, but sometimes holding on to the niche you carved is way better than trying to appeal to the largest audience. It becomes even more odious that they wanted to be Fortnite with the Battle Royale mode they introduced to the game, which was pretty much dead on arrival. The game's attempt to appeal to everyone left it in an awkward middle ground where it attempted to be taken seriously, but refused to make any attempt to do that. The so-called untold story of the World War they attempted to tell were historically revised to fit their diverse narrative while spitting on the graves of the actual war heroes they have based their mission on. The game will have you play a commando 16-year-old Norwegian girl taking down an entire base and sabotaging the German Army heavy water production, which is based on a true story. That operation was actually executed by several Norwegian commandos who were men and not a 16-year-old girl. This is not the only mission in the game that was so criminally inaccurate, but for the sake of time, we would refer you to a different video if you want to dive into all the historic inaccuracies made in the game to promote their diverse agenda. Sadly, this wasn't the last of it. In the launch part for the game, they actually kept on mocking the community and put up cherry-picked quotes from the game's community as they kept on pushing their agenda. The game tanked so hard at launch, with 50% less sales than usual, that it had to go on a 40% discount 1 month after release. From then on, it was just a snowball that completely destroyed the game. The lower sales numbers meant the lower player count, so you get less hobbies with ideal connections, higher queue times during matchmaking, and overall just a terrible experience. The lack of content at launch lowered the already low player base even more. They didn't want to stick around with the same few maps they had and wait several months until they unlocked new maps. The game service model didn't work for them at all. The game also had a ton of bugs that were never addressed, sometimes since launch, so even those that were content with the game had to bail on it as well. Battlefield 5 wasn't a terrible game. It had decent gameplay with some new mechanics that most players enjoyed. Some even argued it had the best gunplay in the whole series, but all of that was overshadowed by everything else that happened and the fact they couldn't capture the World War II vibe people were really looking for. Battlefield 1 was a World War I game, and there are very few World War I games that are successful, largely due to the fact that it poses a lot of game design and balancing challenges. World War II, on the other hand, has plenty of material to work with, and that's why you saw so many shooters in the early 2000s focus on World War II until Call of Duty 4 came out. DICE had the golden opportunity that wouldn't require much effort other than copy-pasting Battlefield 1's success into a World War II setting. Instead, they let their political agenda, hubris, and greed ruin a good game and possibly an entire franchise. That's it for today, guys. What do you think of Battlefield 5? Make sure to leave it in the comments right after you give this video a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we upload a new video. Thank you guys for watching, good luck, and have fun.